Now in this unit you're going to read about liberalism. I think it's important before you start reading about liberalism to try to understand what the concept is and what it's not. We throw around the L word, or so it's called in our society nowadays, quite a lot, and so it's important to understand that there are many variants of liberalism. First, there's the liberalism of the Democratic Party of the United States. They're committed to government intervention to create a more equal society, economics such as redistribution of income through welfare, social politics like affirmative action, Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal. These kinds of ideas are all within the Democratic Party of the United States. This is not what we mean by liberalism in international relations. Now, liberalism in the international system may encompass a number of ideas. One is pluralism, the idea that people's ideas and interests can be funneled into state government, who then articulate these interests internationally. This often happens through interest groups who try to pressure governments to change their policies one way or another, and international organizations that often fulfill interests that start off at the domestic level in some cases. Another aspect of liberalism is classical liberalism. In a political term, it may mean libertarian, it may mean maximum freedom for people, freedom from government oppression, lack of government involvement in society at an excessive rate, belief in individualism, individual rights. People like Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, John Locke. This literature becomes a foundation of a lot of human rights literature that we read about today. Another variant of liberalism is called economic neoliberalism. It basically argues that the free market, that capitalism are essentially some of the best ways to operate in an international and domestic economy. People like Adam Smith are sort of the forebearers of this tradition. And by free trade, we basically mean that you drop all forms of protectionism, that you allow countries to free trade with each other. And this is the most efficient way to engage in trade and the way that produces the most wealth. Certainly not just in the international system, but also individually per state. Another liberal notion is called idealism. It isn't utopian per se or idealistic to the extent that it's unrealistic in the international system. It refers to the belief that institutions can be constructed in order to create a more peaceful world. So idealists believe that the best way to prevent world war is to construct some rules and institutions that all states could agree on, and they believed in a concept called collective security, and that is that if one state stands out of line and breaks international law in some way, all of the other states, if they believe it's egregious enough, could get together and attack or put sanctions on that state or do something in order to punish that state in order to bring them back in line with international security. Since the international system is an anarchy, then all of the collective states working together essentially form a loose confederation, if you will, that ostracize those states that decide they don't want to follow the rules. Another articulation of idealism, or liberalism in this case, is called Neoliberal Institutionalism. It's the idea that international institutions are constructed by hegemons, and it may be originally for their own selfish purpose, but over time they may become the framework for international cooperation, and they may outlive the power of the hegemon itself. This is sort of the dominant modern articulation of liberalism in international relations theory. And finally, we have the democratic peace theory, which is another articulation of liberalism. It suggests that democratic states do not go to war with each other for various reasons. Now, I do want to clarify something else as far as liberalism is concerned. I had a class one time where somebody came up to me and they said, hey, this liberalism thing, it seems sort of like a big political, economic Sesame Street sort of thing. You know, what do you have to say about that? And what I said is this. If liberalism is like Sesame Street, it works something like this. Let's say that Ernie and Bert are hungry and they have lots of cookies and they want to work really hard to hoard their cookies. Well, ordinarily everybody on Sesame Street would want to kill them for their cookies, right? So, because Sesame Street is an anarchy and Elmo, and especially Cookie Monster, are going to want those cookies, then we're going to have an absolutely crazy anarchical Sesame Street, right? Cookie!
Elmo doesn't want to hurt anybody, but I'd kill for a cookie.
But if Ernie and Bert make good cookies and sell those cookies to all their friends, then nobody's going to want to kill them, because it's easier and maybe even cheaper to just buy his cookies than it is to buy a weapon and take them forcibly. In fact, if Cookie Monster buys a lot of Ernie and Bert's cookies, then maybe he can also sell them stuff that they need, like paper clips or rubber duckies. They might even start cookie regimes, where they share and trade cookies and duckies, and sooner or later they won't want to kill each other anymore, because they're all having a good time trading cookies and making themselves really rich. And the Good Time Cookie Club, which they now call themselves, decides they're going to kill anybody who doesn't want to play by the democratically decided rules of the club. So if Elmo gets all uppity and thinks he wants to kill for cookies, then maybe the whole group will take Elmo out. So, yeah, liberalism is kind of a perverted version of Sesame Street. Certainly not the Sesame Street I watched when I was a kid.